They've done studies, 60% of the time, it works every time.
Oh, if Jeremy Hill can hold on to a fucking football.
That doesn't make sense.
You're listening to the P&E Bengals Fan Podcast.
3, 2, 1.
Okay, Pete, we're on the air. What's up?
Hey, Erskine, what's going on? Welcome to the Pete and E Show. We're sitting there happy to be back after a Week 4 win.
Right.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. Especially after that Denver game. We're looking like we got pushed around a little bit at the house and at the jungle, and this time we kind of came through with a very solid effort.
Right, and I'm going to take a page out of your book, and like you were kind of saying, those first 3 games, we're playing some pretty good defenses, so I didn't want to panic, so I'm happy to, get past the Denver game with the loss, and we looked pretty decent. I mean, we held our own for a while, but our defense was definitely suspect, but, to turn around and really put it on this Dolphins game, that was huge.
Yeah, I kind of thought that even at the very beginning of the season, that the first 3 games are going to be really tough. I remember us talking about it. Because we're facing some really good defensive lines. But now we should start coming upon some teams that we can handle a little bit easier. Although the next game against Dallas is going to be interesting for many reasons. But here at the quarter pole, we're 4 games into the season of a 16-game season, so we're about 25% of the way through. We're 2-2 against some pretty tough competition. And so hopefully a large part of our hard part of our schedule is done. And now, because what I've saw so far is we kind of match up with some strong teams, but we're not quite where we need to be. But teams like the Dolphins that are still building with new head coaches and things of that nature, we should dominate those teams because our program is a lot further along. But teams like Denver and Pittsburgh, although the Pittsburgh game I felt we lost just by a couple plays here and there, but the Denver game I was really worried about because we really got manhandled on the lines. But here's the thing. The only thing you're really trying to do is get into the playoffs and get ready for the playoffs. And by the time the playoffs come around, you just never know where each team's going to be. We should have Eifert back. We just got Burfict back, and I think it's easy to see the impact that he makes on the defense.
Right.
I think the defense looked a lot more energized this week. I think he gives them a lot of energy, and he made some really nice plays, especially in the passing game. And that's the difference sometimes between stopping somebody on third down and not stopping somebody on third down.
I concur.
I concur.
No, yeah, I'm happy. I mean, obviously, the elephant in the room is you got to get in the end zone.
Yeah.
And even though our defense was playing lights out for, all of the game except for the one Braden Fart they had where it was a busted coverage and they go for the 74-yard touchdown. Yeah. So except for that, our defense played, outstanding.
Well, they did, but the thing I'm starting to become concerned about, and you've seen it in the first 4 games, there's a huge difference between us getting past, like any team, if you can rush the passer or not. Because in the Denver game, the quarterback just had all day to throw. And that was a weakness of Denver's last year was their offensive line, but it looks like they kind of shored it up because Simeon seems like he just got a lot of time against our defense. And then the pass that Tannehill threw for the long touchdown, he could have built the Lincoln log, set back there. I mean, he had so much time. And, of course, when you give a quarterback in this league 7 seconds, I don't care how good your cornerbacks are or your safeties, someone's going to get open. But after that, they really kind of locked it down. And then we started getting really good pressure on their quarterback through the Dolphins' O-line. And then once we started getting a lot of pressure on Tannehill, you saw the mistakes coming out of Ryan Tannehill. But what I'm worried about is, is that something that we're going to be able to develop over the course of the rest of the year? Because once we get to the playoffs, if you don't have a pass rush, you're not going to make it very far.
Right. And then, again, just going back on the offensive side, getting there in the end zone, once we ran it down the field got all the way to the red zone a couple of times. Ran an 80-yard drive, 90-yard drive, but, you got to punch it in. So with Eifert coming back next week, we'll probably see a big difference in, distributing the targets a little bit more and actually trying to gun it in there a little bit more.
Well, like me and you were talking when we watched the game, well, there's a couple points I was going to make, and that is, number one, I am not sure how much our running game is going to be able to develop over the year. It just doesn't look really solid, except that one drive against Denver where Hill pretty much ran it down their throat.
But let me ask you this. is it the backs or is it the offensive line or is it both?
It's the offensive line. Jeremy Hill is running harder than I've seen him run in a long time. Gio looks like Gio. I mean, he's still a nice little scat back with a lot of energy. And it's the offensive line. I mean, so what you have to hope is over the course of the year that they gel. And I think a lot of it, like I've stated before in this podcast, a lot of it has to do with Cedric Agboy, or whatever his name is. And they said he's going to be a beast, so we have to trust the coaches. But as of right now, between him and Bodine at center, we're just not really getting what we need from the offensive line. So it's definitely the offensive line. But what I'm kind of hoping is, I think this fourth game against the Dolphins, you saw finally C.J. Uzoma make some impact from the tight end position. Now we're going to get Eifert back. You got to figure that's, opposing teams are going to try to shade Eifert a little bit. And so C.J. Uzoma is going to still become a big part of our offense. You'd like to see, Brandon LaFell has definitely showed some flashes of playing some good ball, but it's not consistent enough to draw the coverage from A.J. Green. And Tyler Boyd really hasn't made the impact you would like to see. But same thing, you see some skills, you see what he's got. I think, honestly, he's going to end up, at the end of the day, becoming a T.J. Houshmandzadeh kind of guy.
And they're just saying, comparing apples to apples as far as stats go, going back to Brandon LaFell, they were comparing his season so far, first 4 games, to the first 4 games in the season 2013 with Marvin Jones. And it's very comparable. Obviously, he doesn't have the touchdowns. Marvin Jones had 3 touchdowns, I think, through 3 games or whatever. But as far as the yardage and the targets and everything, it's pretty much,
right on schedule.
Right. So.
And not only that, but with all the new pieces on the team, all the young people on the team, I think it's something that a lot of people aren't looking at either is our special teams coverage isn't as tight as it used to be. And that's just because, they're working in a lot of the young kids, the young rookies. It hasn't been horrible, but it definitely hasn't been as tight as it has been in the past. And the punter doesn't look like he really drops the ball inside the 20 like he used to. Kevin Huber, last couple of seasons or since we've gotten him, usually does a really great job of placing the ball somewhere, between the 10 and the end zone. With that being said.
Yeah, but, and then the other thing is, obviously, it's another point of emphasis as far as, another thing that we're talking right now about things that need to improve. We got 10 days off, so going into the Dallas games, obviously, areas that the team can improve. So another is just, as you're talking about special teams coverage, is actually, punt returns and kickoff returns. And obviously we had the mistake from Adam Jones in the Denver game, and that, if you're asking me, that changed the whole outcome of the game.
It did, but the thing I'm kind of hoping that balances it out at the end of the year. That fumble in the Denver game by Adam Jones and also the Tyler Boyd fumble in the Steelers game should have both easily been overturned by review. And I think, honestly, during the course of a year, a lot of times you'll see the calls kind of even out. So hopefully we get a lot of our bad calls out of the way, because the Tyler Boyd and the Adam Jones, I think you could have easily overturned either one with instant replay, and they both were not.
Yeah.
And both of those actual fumbles could have changed a lot. I think the Pittsburgh game, the Tyler Boyd fumble gives us a good chance of, trying to get in there and tie the game.
Yeah, we still needed 8 points, but I think that one, without a doubt, should have been overturned.
Yeah.
The other one, because it was already called a fumble, I can see how it would be hard to argue against it after the fact.
Yeah, but it's also easy to argue for it. And here's the thing.
But that's the thing. If it's called whatever it's called on the field, in order to overturn it, it has to be equivocal. Whatever.
Yeah, well, you have to have overwhelming evidence.
Right.
But I'll say this: the way that Denver handled our D-line and O-line, I still think even if Adam Jones doesn't fumble that ball, there's a good chance we're going to lose to Denver anyway. They really dominated us on the lines.
That's true, but the momentum shifted. We had just scored. We held them to probably a 3-and-out because that was a return that he caught on like the 40 or something, and we would have been right back. We would have been right back in field goal position at least to score again.
Yeah, true, but I don't know. The Denver game, like the Pittsburgh game, after we beat the Jets, which we really shouldn't have. With 7 sacks. So we get away with one there. The Pittsburgh game, we could have pulled out with another 2 or 3 good plays along the way. I think the Pittsburgh game, you see really the difference of having Eifert and Vontaze Burfict. They could have both made a huge difference in that Pittsburgh game. But to be honest with you, the Denver game, they beat us, and they beat us fair and square. Like they just
And they beat us over the top because,
Yeah.
man, he was throwing all over our defense.
Yeah. Well, it was obvious that the game plan for the Bengals were they have a young quarterback. Let's let them beat us.
Right.
You know, let's stop C.J. Anderson, stop the running game. And sometimes the plan works, and
Yeah.
sometimes the plan works for the other team.
And I like blitzes as next as much as the next guy, but I think that the Bengals blitz on third down way too often.
It becomes a little bit predictable. You
Yeah.
know, sometimes you have to be able to drop back, but it's easy for us in hindsight to say
Of
what they
course.
could have and should have done.
Of course.
But at the same time, my personal opinion is Denver beat us. They just beat us.
All right, fair enough.
You know, and the Miami game really showed that where we are right now, we're not as good as some of the other teams, but we are sure as hell a lot better than a lot of teams. Because the Dolphins game kind of looked like a scrimmage. It kind of looked like a preseason game. Because we pretty much, I mean, besides not being able to get into the end zone, we pretty much did with them whatever we wanted to do. And if you turn those 5 field goals into touchdowns, now you're looking at it like a 42-7 game. You're looking at a complete blowout instead of a 22-7 game, which made it look a lot more respectable for the Dolphins. But at the end of the day, we dominated them that game. We really dominated them. And so we go to Dallas next, and Dallas is kind of a misnomer because you really don't know what you're going to get. I mean, you do, but you don't. I mean, the defense is not that great. Dak Prescott, I hope they don't go into the Dallas game with the same plan they had against Denver because, Prescott can also, come out and get you a little bit if you sit back and let him have lanes. So I'm hoping that, and it's in Dallas, and so it's going to be a tough road game for us, but I really think the Bengals can pull it out, but I'm really kind of curious to see, can we get pressure on Dak Prescott with our front four? And because so far we have not had the pressure that you would like to see. But I will say this, in the first 4 games, I must have counted at least personally 10 to 12 plays.
All kind of holding.
Oh, my God. Where they are just.
All kind of holding on us, not called.
Oh, my goodness. Especially Carlos Dunlap. He gets around that end. They can't contain him. They hold him, and we don't get the call at all. And you have to think at some point Marvin Lewis is going to look at that tape and call that, because he sits on the competition committee.
Right.
And he's going to have to call, Goodell or somebody and say, listen, like, why aren't we getting these calls? Because now that may be one of the problems with our pass rush. So now if they're calling that holding play, excuse me, then now the O-line knows that the ref's calling it. Now he has to play Dunlap straight up without having to hold him. And now Dunlap's going to go crazy. He's going to be all over the place. But if you're going to continuously hold Carlos Dunlap and you're not going to get the call, then, yeah, of course, you're going to keep holding him.
Right.
And I think that takes away a bit from our pass rush, but just a large amount of plays where you can look at and be like, man, they could have easily called that holding. And don't get me wrong, I know you can actually probably call holding on every play that happens. But there's like the holds that happen on the interior line that you can't really see. And there's the holds that we see over the last 4 weeks where it's just like painfully obvious. Like, I mean, any layman watching football on TV, can point out like, geez, man, they're holding Carlos Dunlap all day. And so if you can see that so easily on the TV screen, then why aren't the refs calling that? And so, but at the same time, you can't put the game in the hands of your referees. You have to go out and get it yourself. So, there's only so much you can really blame the referees at the end of the day.
Right, and I was just going to jump forward, talk about that Dallas game real quick, and saying that one of the things I'm interested in seeing is, especially this coming weekend with the games tomorrow, is what's going on with Des Bryant. Because he injured his knee last week, and they were saying something like a hairline fracture or something, and saying that he still might play this week, which would be interesting, but, that's going to... it's going to be interesting what happens next week with him, because that's going to slow him down a little bit at the very least.
Well, you'd like to think without Tony Romo, you can take advantage of Dallas and go get him.
Right, that's what you would like to think.
But if they don't have Romo and they don't have Des Bryant, then, you should be able to hold Dallas's offense down a little bit. I know they have the great O-line and this and that, but without any kind of really dynamic receivers, I'm not really sure, what you're looking at. So we have a lot to do. And it's still a long season. That's the beautiful part about it. There's so much that can still happen. Injuries can happen. So even though there are some teams out there right now that maybe are a little bit stronger than us, if we can hopefully we've kind of gotten over a lot of our injury bug early this year with Eifert and things like that, and then hopefully we can kind of get the ability to. That's falling out. Pause it.
All right, here we go. All right, so we're back.
All right. After a near disaster of the AC kind.
Right.
So it looks like we're gonna.
Are we gonna jump into our predictions for this weekend?
Might as well. They haven't been much for predictions, to be honest with you. I hope that nobody following along is placing Vegas bets, because we're gonna.
Based off of our analysis.
Yeah, because well, hopefully as we go along and we learn the teams, we'll get our record up there a little bit more. So do you want to start with the next game and then go from there?
Yeah. Well, obviously we had already picked the Bengals to win this one, and
yeah, that was a pretty easy call.
We're 1-0 this week so far.
Well, that's a positive start for this week.
But we got the Jaguars playing in London.
Ooh, wow! And against the Colts. Two teams on the back road to nowhere. I'm going to have to say that on this game, I am going to pick the Jaguars to win in London, their new future home for their team.
Yeah, I'm going to go with you on Jaguars. I said it last week. I think I might have said it the week before that, but I think their offense has a lot of potential to score points, and they just got to, find a way to put it together. And right now they're struggling, but they have the tools in place. So,
but if you need a team to kind of get it together against, the Colts are coming your way. They have a secondary that wouldn't even start for Ohio State. So you should be able, especially Blake Bortles, he should be able to take advantage of that. I don't really see how the Colts are going to really stop the Jaguars. And the Jaguars defense really hasn't been what it was supposed to be or what it was billed to be in the preseason or offseason. But I think that they're good enough to keep Andrew Luck at bay. I think the Jaguars pulled that out.
All right, next we got the Texans. Sorry, we do have the Texans. We have playing in Houston against the Titans. Texans
in Houston. I'm going to go with the Houston Texans.
I'm going to do that as well. After that embarrassment last week, playing against the Colts, going 27-0, they're going to be fired up to actually put some points up.
And they did lose J.J. Watt.
They did lose J.J. Watt on the defensive side, but they have a lot of weapons on the offense, and that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Will Fuller has just been been beasting across the hall from across the field from
Hopkins.
So
no, I agree, and not only that, but I still feel the same about Tennessee in the fact that I like what they're building, but they're not there yet. They need pieces. They're like 4 or 5 pieces away.
Right.
The next game is going to be that's going to be one of those games. It's going to be one of those games you're only going to watch if you live somewhere and it's the only game on TV, and you don't have internet, you don't have a friend with DirecTV, you don't have a local bar with the DirecTV package. So the Cleveland Browns are going to go to Washington and visit the Redskins. Yeah, I'm just because I can't ever vote with Cleveland because they're so bad. Now Josh Gordon's out, rehab, and they just don't have any bullets in the gun. I'm just going to go Redskins.
Redskins, yeah.
All right, so the next game will be a little bit nicer. We have the Seattle Sea Chickens going to see the Jetropolitans of New York, the New York Jets. If this was in Seattle, I think it's an easy call. I think Seattle wins. But Seattle having to fly all the way across the country, come to play the Jets, I think I am going to go with the upset, and I am going to pick the Jets winning at home.
Okay, I'm not as bold. I'm going to go with the Seahawks. I know they're struggling a little bit with Russell Wilson's been a little limited. He's supposed to be playing again this week, so shouldn't be that big of an issue. I'll go with the Seahawks. They usually find a way to get it done.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one. But at least that's the first game where we're picking different teams. The next game, I think we can just go ahead and skip through this real fast because it's the Buffalo Bills at the Patriots. And if the Patriots are 3-0 with a backup quarterback and then a backup of a backup quarterback, I just don't see how I can pick against New England for the rest of the year.
Yeah, they might not even have a quarterback this game, and they'll probably still win. It's a divisional game, but, all you got to do is look at it. It's the Bills versus Bill Belichick. So,
pretty much.
Going Patriots.
At this point, if you lined up the Patriots and you had to pick against them in the 85 Bears and the 2000 Ravens, I don't care what team you pull up. The Patriots right now are just a football university. I just don't think it's getting much better than what you're seeing out of the Patriots this year.
They definitely know something that every other team doesn't know.
Oh, man, they are tight, and they do a really good job of fitting their schemes into the personnel that they have. They don't fit the personnel into the scheme. They take the personnel they have and build a scheme around them. And it shows, and they do a great, great job of it. So I think we both got the Patriots on that one.
Yep.
All right, then the next one we're going to have to go with the Carolina Panthers is going to visit the Falcons. I'll just make that one quick. I'm just going to go ahead and say the Panthers. They've kind of started off slow, but I think at the end of the year they'll be where they need to be, and this is one of those games I think they can get.
Yeah, I think this game can be you can see a lot of points in this game, but ultimately I think the Panthers are going to come out. I don't see them having 2 bad games in a row. They lost against Minnesota last week, and it was a tough one for them, so I think they're going to come out firing on all cylinders.
That's a good call there. All right, our next game is going to be the Oakland Raiders versus the Baltimore Ravens, the hated Baltimore Ravens of the AFC North. Sitting pretty at 3-0 right now, but they're facing a Raiders team that is 2-1. So you have a very competitive game there. I think the Ravens 3-0 record is more of a byproduct of an easy, early season schedule. But if I had to pick, I'm gonna say the Raiders. I say the Raiders ride their wave, and they get just enough defense to stop Joe Flacco, and their offense does enough to win on the road, somewhere around 31-24.
I'd like to see that because I don't want to have a 4-0 team in the AFC North if it's not the Bengals.
True.
But yeah, I'm starting to wonder, is it their schedule or are they just underrated this year so far? I think against the Raiders, I think the Ravens pull it out, 4-0.
That's going to, if they do, I mean, they'll start to prove that they're somewhat legitimate.
Right.
But,
all right, next on the docket, we got the Detroit Lions at the Chicago Bears.
Oh, my God, you want to talk about an ugly game. The Bears so far just have absolutely shown nothing. I mean, the Bears have not shown anything. And until they do, and even though the Lions can be very sporadic and they can definitely find ways to lose, I am going to go with the Lions on the road.
I'm going with the Lions. I don't think Marvin Jones can ever have another game like he did last week. But with that being said, man, he's definitely the number one over there in Detroit, and they're throwing to him early and often. I'm going with the Lions.
Oh, yeah, I think it's a pretty good call. All right, at 4:05 p.m. on the Eastern Standard Time, we get to the evening games. We are looking at the undefeated Denver Broncos going down to Tampa to face on Jameson Winston and the Buccaneers. After seeing those guys up close and personal against the Bengals, I just don't see how Tampa pulls out that win. Broncos on the road.
Yeah, I'm going to go Broncos. It's the pick that makes sense.
Yeah. And then, of course, that means Tampa Bay's going to beat them. But right now...
secretly, I'm hoping that.
Yeah, me and you both. The next game will be the Rams at Cardinals, and that's going to be easy for me. I'm just going to go ahead and say Cardinals.
No, another divisional matchup, right?
Yeah, very much so.
I'm going to go with the Cardinals. They got embarrassed last week as well, didn't they?
Yeah.
Who they played somebody and took a beating. So, yeah, I think they're going to return the favor. I think Carson Palmer's not going to have another game where he throws 4 interceptions without throwing a touchdown.
True.
So, yeah, Cardinals.
And like we were talking about earlier in the day, Johnson has just been putting in crazy work.
Yeah, David Johnson is just monster.
Well, it'll be a little difficult against the Rams defense. But say what you want about the Rams, their defense is playing pretty decent this year. I just don't see the offense coming up with enough to hang with Carson Palmer.
Right, I'm with you on that one.
Okay, next game would be the Saints at the San Diego Chargers.
I'll take this one. Saints at the Chargers. I don't think the Saints have won yet.
No, I think they got a game.
You think they did? Okay, I don't remember. But in either case, I'm picking the Saints. They have not won yet.
The Saints are 0-3.
The Saints are 0-3 right now. Going into San Diego, they're desperate. Their pride is hurt. Yeah, I'm going Saints. They're always capable of putting up a lot of points. Their defense, on the other hand, is just
Baby town frolic.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. But, I'm going Saints.
I think I'm going to go ahead and go Chargers, only because the Chargers are at home and the Saints are on the road. And this looks like the Saints have given me the feeling the last couple of years that Sean Payton has stayed a season or two too long. They should have went through a whole coaching change a couple of years ago, or maybe a year or so ago. But I think after this season, you're going to definitely see it. Because if they lose this game, then they're going to be in a lot of trouble. They'll be 0-4, and it won't look good. And I think the Chargers are going to do it to them. I think the Chargers are going to pull that out.
All right, next we got the Dallas Cowboys at the San Francisco 49ers.
Oh, so they get an easy game before they play us.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm going to go with Dallas in this one.
Yeah, me too.
And then I'm going to predict that Blaine Gabbert's not the starter after this game.
Ooh, bold prediction. I like it. I like it.
I don't know what they're doing in San Francisco, but it clearly isn't working. They don't look very good.
Well, it's only 3 games in. You can't, judge the whole regime on 3 games. I mean, although... plus they're dealing with a lack of talent there. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if San Francisco jumps up and wins this game, because it is a rookie quarterback for Dallas. It is on the road. Does Dallas have more talent? Possibly, but if they've lost Des Bryant and Romo, and Prescott's played well, but you're still on the road in a hostile territory in San Francisco. 2 teams that have had a large history as far as playing each other. But I'm still going to have to pick the Cowboys. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Niners won it.
All right. And that takes us to the Sunday night game.
Oh, and this is a good one. This is the backyard. Bring your mama out, bring your daddy out. Just bring out the moonshine and the whipping sticks and just watch everybody go at it.
Uh-huh.
And that's going to be the Kansas City Chiefs at the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to pick Pittsburgh only because they're at home. I believe they get Le'Veon Bell back, so I think both defenses are comparable. But if you want to compare both offenses between Ben, and not that the Chiefs are any slouches, they play a very tight game. But I just think Pittsburgh has a little bit more explosiveness in them, and they'll take that game.
Yeah, and nobody, including the Pittsburgh Steelers, including the Philadelphia Eagles, thought that Pittsburgh was going to lose so horribly last week. So
yeah, you got to think they're going to come out a little
exactly. Yeah, week. They're going to be come out like, okay, wait, that was a fluke. So
and they're going to be out to prove it. And then the good way to prove it is to play the Chiefs. They're a pretty solid team. So I think the Pittsburgh Steelers pull that one in a nail biter.
There we go.
So we get to Monday Night Football, which we have the Giants of New York going to Minnesota and playing the Vikings, which so far has, I think anyway, been one of the most interesting teams in the league to watch this year. They've dealt with so much adversity with Bridgewater going down and Peterson going down. Then you make the huge gamble trade, and I don't care what you say, that is a huge gamble they took, giving up a number 1, impossible more picks to the Eagles for Sam Bradford. But you'd have to say at this current moment, Sam Bradford has been worth every dime. He has kept them in. They're undefeated, which is a tip of the cap to Mike Zimmer, because he has taken a team that has lost their starting quarterback, their starting running back, 2 dynamic players, and he still has them at 3-0. And it's not like the case where the Ravens are 3-0 and they've played some pretty chump teams. The Vikings have played some decent talent so far. They've played the Panthers and beat them on the road. I believe they also beat the Packers already. And it's not like they're just picking off bad teams. I'm going to have to say Minnesota wins this game at home Monday night. The Giants, they got some talent. They've beaten the team or so. But, I think Minnesota they're a lot deeper than people really expected, which is saying something, because people expected Minnesota to be better this year. They expected them to be tougher.
Imagine that.
Yeah, but they look better than advertised. And so I just don't see how the Giants get around the Vikings.
Yeah, I'm right with you, every word.
Yeah, that's been a real interesting team to watch this year.
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, Minnesota has been just something to watch.
Yeah, Vikings are nasty.
But now the curious thing for me now is going to be, you always get that team that starts out hot. Last year it was the Falcons starting 5 or 6-0 or something like that. And then at the end of the season they're like, 8-8 or 7-9 or something. So now you're looking at all these teams that are 3-0 so far, and you're thinking to yourself, who's going to be the team that really jumps up and then catches a beat down, towards the end of the year.